industry leader, researcher, instructor, and successful businessman. He is an authority on the use and abuse of SSRIs in the VA system. He received the Innovation of the Year Award from the Wall Street Journal in 2008 for his development and commercialization of the EZIO, which has been credited with saving the lives of more than 4 million patients worldwide. Dr. Miller received the Humanitarian of the Year Award from the University of Michigan in 2017 for his work in Haiti, saving the lives of thousands of cholera victims. Dr. Miller is the author of 3 books about emergency medicine, missionary medicine, and suicide. Suicide Stalks the Sniper being the title of what's relevant here. And he is also the father of Navy veteran Mark Miller, who took his life at the entrance of the San Antonio Audie Murphy VA on April the 7th of this year. Mark was 53 years old. Dr. Miller?
Thank you, Grunstyle Foundation. Thank you, the veterans. Thank all of you for being here and taking an interest in our veterans. There's no doubt about it what the problem is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem today. Why do 6,000 veterans commit suicide every day? Actually, that number is incorrect. The real number is about 17,000. We know that because whenever possible, the VA likes to describe it as something else, an overdose, for example, or you fell out of a 5th-story window, or you had an automobile crash. All those can be suicides, but they're never mentioned in the suicide statistics. So we're spending millions more on preventing suicide every year, and it's not getting better. I'm sorry, you've seen this, every speaker's brought up this same chart. I want you to look here in the year 2007 and look at it here today. Why is suicide rates going up? I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to talk about the big elephants in the room nobody wants to talk about. I'm going to bring to light what is causing this. Why are we getting subscribed to all these medications? Why are people getting drugged up all the time? Why is it happening? Nobody wants to answer that, do they? I'm brave. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm also going to tell you what simply thing we can do to stop it. How would you like that? So I'm building on what Derek has said and Angie said. I agree with everything they've said. They're just very, very articulate about that. I'm going to skip through this. They already told you who I was. But most important, I was Mark Miller's papa. Who is Mark Miller? Navy sniper. Here's how I know Mark. He was the kindest, most precious boy. I had 5 kids. But of all the kids, he was the most precious, kind, helpful little boy, and never had trouble with him. He was so loving, so kind. And at 18, he said one day, "Dad, I'm going into the Navy." I said, "Really? When?" "In 2 days." I said, "Whoa, wow." So here he was on the George Washington, but he soon became a sniper. He joined the Special Forces, the D-22, and he did this over 9/11 because he really wanted to serve his country, okay? So he was a designated marksman with a high value access. For example, he was on ships that had petroleum. He was on oil platforms in Iraq. He was in the Navy SEALs operations where he'd go with the SEALs into Panama, Colombia, and all those places, just amazing things. And during that time, he was in some very, very difficult situations. You can see him here on one of the ships, spending hours and hours. Here's looking through his sniper rifle at, are these enemies or not? Boy, that's a responsibility, isn't it? Do I take this guy out or don't I? And then he developed severe back injury from carrying all this equipment. He normally had to carry about 80 pounds of equipment every place he went. When he was on the ABOT platform in Iraq for a year, he had to work 12-hour shifts on that without any bathroom facilities or anything, and it was very, very tough on his back. And so finally, after going several times to his commander and to the medical people there, they finally got an MRI of his spine, and you can see where he had very severe spine injury into his spinal cord. And so after this, they got this MRI scan for him. They sent him back home here to Kingsville. And there at Kingsville, he was able to sit in a patrol car and just drive around. And while he did that, of course, he became very depressed. He got thinking about what a kind man he was. He wasn't born to be a sniper. He says in his book, I was a sniper because I wanted to save my family and my country. That's not what I was meant to be. I was meant to be a painter. I was meant to be someone gentle. So he got to thinking about that. He got more and more depressed. So he went to his medical help there in Kingsville, to the doctors in the Navy, and they put him on Prozac. Do you think he had a Prozac deficiency? Is that why he was depressed? They put him on a Prozac that was a very popular SSRI back in the day, and immediately he felt compelled to commit suicide. He said that's the only way out. Totally compelled. He went and did crazy things. He went and borrowed $20,000 from the Naval Credit Union. He's put on this Prozac. He drew this picture. This is how he made him feel. It's hard for him to describe. He said he felt very powerful, very happy, very sad. And this went around in his head, round and around. And he finally went on his trip to kill himself. He wrote this suicide note, which we found. The last part of it says, "The world and all the people will not harm me anymore. I am leaving." Now this was in 2007. So he went on a 10-day trek through Mexico. We had 23 people following him, trying to catch him and save him. And it was a miracle. We should write a movie about that, have a movie about it. It was unbelievable how he kept ahead of us. He was very clever. At the last minute, his plan was to go to Costa Rica. He was going to Mexico first to get his medicine, his Nebutol, so he could commit suicide. Then he was going to Costa Rica out in a little boat. He had a weight with him and rope. He was going to take his Nebutol and go into the bottom of the ocean. That was his plan. At the end of 10 days, we almost gave up hope, and at the last second, as he was getting on a plane for Costa Rica, believe it or not, the Mexican federales found him and caught him. 20 of them wrestled him to the ground, took away his Nebutol. It was a miracle of God that he was saved. We got him back to 3 months in rehabilitation in San Diego, got him off Prozac, and he went through neuroplasticity, which is a wonderful way of mapping your brain out and seeing where the problems are, re-educating the brain how to work. And it seemed to really help him. It seemed to cure him. He was so good after he came back. And then he went to be a painter. That was his mission in life, to be a painter. And he was a great painter. And then if you want to see, some of his paintings are based on the Bible. Most of them had great messages of spirituality for us. This is a painting he drew of what he saw, the death and destruction in the field, and then God guiding his hand to paint a peaceful picture. And peace was coming back into his life. And we even wrote a book together. He wrote his story finally. He couldn't talk about it for a few years, but he finally told his story. We wrote this book together where he explains why he wanted to commit suicide, what he did to get over it, and what the purpose in life was. I was lulled into a feeling that he was completely cured forever. And so we wrote this book, and if you haven't had it, I'm not trying to sell a book, I'll give you one if you want one. But what happened after 18 years, this spring, Mark's back pain returned. He went to the VA here at Audie Murphy, and they put him on opioids. Wow. He went home and he started getting drug opioids as well from the vape shops, and he started drinking, and so there he was on opioids, alcohol, and he became very depressed. His mother died, and he kept all this from the family. He would put on a good, in fact, I met with him a day before he went to the VA, and he seemed to be okay, because I met with him frequently. He lived down in Devine. So he told his friends that he admitted to his friends and to his pastor that he was addicted and he was going to go to the VA to get detoxified, that he was very suicidal again, and he was very addicted. So he went to the VA to be admitted on April 1st. He went in and told them that he was suicidal, very depressed, very much hooked on drugs. And here's what, he sent me this message. You can see it if you like. "I just left my VA appointment at the Audie Murphy. Look how nice they are. They prescribed me Seroquel. Wow, how nice. Did not even listen to my story. Just like a robot that hands out poison to every soldier. I should call KSAT News and tell them that they are murdering our heroic men and women. They did not even listen to anything I said. Just prescribed stuff. Unreal. It's a crime. They are murdering veterans." Not my words, my son's word. 7 days later, here's what they gave him. It says for mood. He told me on the phone, I called him, he said they spent 5 minutes with me He said, oh, you're just depressed. Here's some Seroquel. This will fix you. 7 days later, he waited till I was in El Salvador. We're missionaries there. And he texted me this at 12:34. Papa, I love you very much and I always will. I texted him back immediately. I love you too, son, with all my heart. I don't know if he read that or not, because just a couple minutes later, he shot himself in the head at the VA. Why did Mark take his own life? I know why. It was a powerful protest, a powerful statement to the VA and to the world on behalf of thousands of veterans that have been neglected and pushed to the brink of suicide. Veterans whose voices have been silenced and plights have been ignored. It was a protest. He didn't commit suicide. He committed protest against a broken system that will not listen. So Mark was not alone. After that happened, I still haven't read all of the emails. I got over like 20,000 to me on Facebook, and I got stories after stories, over 300 stories of the exact same thing. They said the exact same happened to my father, to my husband, to my son. We went to the VA with depression. They didn't listen. They just gave me drugs. I came home and killed myself. This happens every day. Today, 22 veterans will kill themselves today. You've seen this chart. This is the VA's own statistics, okay? So it shows down here at the beginning, when suicide prevention efforts started back in 2006, the blue line is where veterans are being treated with psychotropics and going into the VA hospital. The green line is where they stay away from the VA hospital. Which group would you rather be in? This is proof beyond shadow of a doubt. You go to the VA and it's worse. And so our battle failed. As I already mentioned, 68% of veterans are on psychotropic drugs. That's a crime. You know, medicine in the U.S. is controlled by Big Pharma. If you haven't learned that already, you should know that. Why? Because it's a $1.7 trillion industry. Follow the money. No incentives to decrease suicides. They have a huge incentive to keep them up so they can keep selling their drugs. So what's the leading cause of preventable suicide? And those are SSRIs. That's the depression drugs. Mark took the Zoloft, Paxil, the Prozac, all those kinds. Here's about the truth. I'm not going to spend much time on this today because I don't have that time, but I've written papers on it. If you'd like, I would send it to you. I have white papers. I have thousands of references. SSRIs have been proven, now think about this, they've been proven not to work any better than sugar pills. There have been 300 studies just recently, last month, reported and proving that sugar pills just work just as well. Why do sugar pills work? Well, if you go into the doctor and you talk to him about your problems, he says, pills make you feel better, you're going to feel better, just the placebo effect. They don't work any better. But on the negative side, but the worst thing is they increase suicides by 300%. Yet most vets get SSRIs. Boggles the mind, doesn't it? You want to know why? Okay, we spent on suicide prevention. The more that's spent, the more. I've asked the question why. Because the system is broken. There's compelling research that was done by Robert Whitaker, and that's of the Grunt Foundation. I want to thank him so much for this. He put together all this information, wrote the book Anatomy of an Epidemic and Mad in America. It's so boring, so I put him in a cartoon form for you. And I'm going to explain statistics prove. Let's zero on this a little bit, okay? So it's a suicide prevention mobile, I call it. The treatment at the VA is going backwards. The more people go in the VA, more they commit suicide. So let's look. The vets are sad, depressed, and anxious. Now, Angie talked about that. You know, if I was in battle, I'm not a veteran, my son was. Don't you think he'd be sad or depressed or have panic or feel anxious? That's normal. If you don't feel that, you're not normal. You know, if any of us were under those circumstances, we're seeing people dying around us, being killed, and we have to kill, we're going to be sad and depressed. Are we mentally ill? No, that's normal. That's normal. But what happens? They go to the VA. What's the first thing that happens? They see the psychiatrist. There's the big elephant in the room. Why hasn't anybody talked about the psychiatrist? I'm going to talk about the psychiatrist. I'm going to talk about why and how they got brainwashed. So they see the psychiatrist for 5 minutes. Then where do they go? They now get a diagnosis of PTSD or bipolar. You are now mentally ill. Wow. You weren't mentally ill until you went to the VA. Now you're mentally ill because you went to the VA. You're not depressed. You're not sad. You are mentally ill. You have a diagnosis. Now, what happens if you're mentally ill? We have to treat mentally illness and so there it goes. So you start on the cycle. You get a psychotropic drug. So then what happens, this is the treadmill that happens, they fall off the back, over 6,000 a year get rolled over and killed. The other vast majority, we talked about that, going back with polypharmacy. They go back over and over and over. They go around and around. I had a veteran last month that was on 17 medications for nausea-morphine. 17. If I took those drugs, you'd have to drag me out of here. I couldn't get out of bed. And yet they're expected them to function with 17 drugs. So it goes round and round. Well, what happens is a few get better. That's how they can justify it. They'll get testimonies from a few people got better on these drugs, okay? But it's huge business for the VA. $571 billion profit a year for the VA by doing this, by having this mobile, okay? Let's go back to it real quick. I should have put one at the end, but I'm going back. Let's look at this thing again. There's the mobile that's making $571 billion a year, putting veterans through this over and over again. And it's unbelievable, the cycle they're going through. So let's move forward and find out why this is happening. Here's a statistic. You are less likely to be killed by a bullet than you are to die by suicide. 9,000 died in combat, 60,000 died of suicide in the last 10 years. Yep. SSRIs are modern quackery. Call it treatment, but they deliver death. Drugging veterans is a lot easier and faster than treating them. It's pretty easy to just give them drugs, right? So let's find out why. Okay, Big Pharma is brilliant. It used to be the tobacco industry, okay? So they sponsor politicians, the VA budget, the FDA budget, pay for media, promote bogus research, and directly pay the psychiatrists. Let's look at that a little deeper. So here are the buckets that it goes to. This is what Big Pharma pays. They sponsor friendly politicians, and they're the biggest lobbyists in Washington. They spend over $230 million getting their favorite politicians reelected. If you've been reelected, if you were given $1 million for reelection, are you going to say anything against the psychiatrist? Well, absolutely not. Next, they pay for 70% of the FDA's budget. FDA is who approves these drugs, right? Whoa! Is that a conflict of interest? If somebody's paying me 70% of my salary, I'm going to help them out and give them pretty much whatever they want? Absolutely. And you read the stories, and I'll give you the white paper. This is how the SSRIs got approved in the first place. The third bucket is they control the media. Have you ever seen an ad for a drug on TV? They're not trying to sell drugs. They are controlling the media. The media will not say anything against them because they would get this support withheld from them. They're quiet. They control the media. $6 billion a year. That's how much they spend on that. The last bucket is they indoctrinate the psychiatrist. The first one is bogus research, and I won't even get into that today, but I have lectures on that. There's 1,000 ways you can have bogus research, because if you sponsor it, you make it say anything you want. But they directly pay to psychiatrists $110 million last year. I have the names of 8 psychiatrists. I'll give them to you, right? And they paid over $1 million each, go around the country lecturing about how good these are to all of the VA hospitals. $1 million. So they gave me $1 million as a doctor going around lecturing. What am I going to say about it for $1 million? Whoa, these are wonderful. Suicides it's a figment of your imagination. So $110 million directly paid to psychiatrists to use the drugs. Wow. Why would they do that? I'm going to explain. I used to be a drug dealer. In the emergency room, people used to come in with depression. A lot of them did. In the emergency room, you come in for all kinds of horrible reasons. Here, I'll just give you a Prozac or Zoloft. I used to hand them out like candy. I was guilty. A lot of family practice doctors are. A lot of emergency doctors are. I was definitely a drug dealer. Why? Here's my story. Let me tell you my story. This may help you understand. So I went into medicine because I wanted to help people. I think most doctors do, all right? And so I learned how to diagnose diseases. We're probably better at it than anybody else. And Big Pharma came along and they gave me a medicine to treat each of these diseases. So if you had a headache, here's a pill for it. If you have a stomach ache, here's a pill for it. If you have an arthritis, here's a pill for it. So I felt good. Getting out of medical school, I knew how to diagnose. I wanted to help people. Big Pharma was my big brother that gave me the medicine to help people. Wow, what good. I was never taught about the root causes of diseases, though. I didn't know that medical school was sponsored by Big Pharma. They sponsor the medical schools. Did you know that? I didn't know that most science was bogus. And boy, I tell you what, again, if I had all day, I'd tell you how they do that. But it's very easy to do. And so and they publish this in these big medical journals who are no more than just their media to getting their false information out. And so I trusted science. I trusted research. I trusted our professors. You know, I grew up thinking that I could trust the FDA. I didn't realize they were paid for by Big Pharma. I trusted them. I learned the truth after my son almost killed himself in 2007. I learned the truth. I once was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace. Let's talk about the psychiatrist. They're like I was, you know. Why are they drug dealers? Why do they pass out these drugs at the VA like candy? They studied psychiatry because they wanted to help people, right? They were taught to diagnose anxiety and sadness as a mental illness. That was the first mistake. And then historically, as Derek mentioned, psychiatrists used to spend hours with you. They'd come in, you lay down on the couch, they'd talk to you, oh, what happened? How can we help you? How can we plan for the future? Come back next week and we'll see how you're doing. We'll give you things to do. And they really cared about you, spent time with you, and that worked. But that took hours of time. Not profitable, not efficient. So then Big Pharma to the rescue. Big Pharma came in and convinced them that mental illness is caused by an imbalance in the brain. My brain is imbalanced. I have too much serotonin. I don't have enough serotonin. That's all fake. There's nothing to that. That's completely bogus. But they convinced the psychiatrist that the reason you're sad, you come back from the Army, you come back from the Navy, you come back from the Air Force, and you're depressed, your brain is imbalanced. So we're going to give you drugs for that. The drug will treat that imbalance. And so with pills, psychiatrists can treat a patient in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. Very profitable, very profitable. And they also trusted science. Most do not know that science is bogus. The question is, can we ever retrain psychiatrists? What do you think? No, of course not. You cannot retrain psychiatrists, never. Why? Because psychotropics are a religion with them. Have you ever tried to fight against somebody with their religion? You know, I had an aunt that told me never talk about politics or religion because you'll never get anywhere. You cannot talk to psychiatrists about SSRIs or psychotropics because it's a religion with them. They will not change, period. So how do you fix the system? I'm going to leave you with a way to fix it, okay? And decrease suicides. Pretty easy. There's hope. Suicide can be prevented. We talked a lot about some alternatives, and there's at least 20 modalities that have been proven to work better than psychotropics. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk about all these. I had a few of my favorites. First is Christian counseling. I think that, boy, I tell you what, it's a good Christian counseling. Even if you're an atheist, Christian counseling says, you know, God says, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. You know, love your enemies. There's ways and peace. There's talking therapies, exercise, self-help groups, neuroplasticity, finding a purpose in life. Then there's the vitamin D. How many people are low on vitamin D and vitamin B and magnesiums? How about quality sleep? How about decreasing screen time? How about sunlight, getting out in the sun? There's so many things, and your favorite's probably here, maybe not, but there's lots of alternatives. See, if we had no alternatives to the psychiatric drugs, we'd say, well, maybe you have to use them. But these things all work better. So, here's the problem. We're trying to think about in your home if your sink was overflowing. And all you did, keep mopping it up, keep mopping it up. That's what we're doing. We're spending $560 million trying to stop suicide and trying to mop it up. And we don't look at why is it overflowing? Why is it plugged up? It's because Big Pharma is putting all that money into it. And then the SSRIs, the drug dealers are down there passing it. And so we have to expand our fight from mopping it up and stopping it to where the key is. That's what we have to do. So the solution is pretty easy. Control Big Pharma. Stop the flow of blood money to legislators. Stop funding the FDA. Prohibit public advertising. You know, in most countries in the world, they cannot advertise to the public. If your drug is that good, your doctor will know about it. They don't have to advertise to you. Control bogus research and make it illegal to pay psychiatrists to use your drugs. So I say this is very easy. It's very easy to fix, but it's very difficult. Is that a contradiction? It's easy because that's all you have to do. If you control Big Pharma, you control the situation. It takes debunking the medical industry, going against that, and its ability to battle Big Pharma. Who can do that? Right now we have somebody up there that is helping us. So we did it today. I tell you that we did a good job with tobacco. When I was a kid, doctors used to say, smoke cigarettes, it's good for colds, it's good for upset stomach, whatever. So they were prescribing cigarettes for everything. In fact, Camels had a big ad that says, 9 out of 10 doctors prefer Camels to Lucky Strikes, you know. Remember that ad? But, you know, we found out that it was causing cancer of the lungs, so we got it stopped. The next thing, we stopped the abuse of opioids. Recent. You know, 160,000 people die every year of opioid overdose for the same reason. It was being advertised. It was being prescribed by every doctor out there. But we got that stopped. We can do the same with psychotropics, the very same way. And so psychotropic drugs may be used once in a while. They should be used for resistant cases that nothing else works, under close supervision, completely disclose the risks to your patients, and only use them for a short period, not a lifetime. Use them until you can find an alternative form of treatment. So my 5-point plan, this is it. I think most of you would agree. First of all, pass laws to prevent Big Pharma from promoting their SSRIs. Number 2, we should designate these drugs as a Schedule III drug. Instead of, right now, anybody can write it. Any family practice doctor can write you Prozac. That shouldn't be the case. It should be a Class 2 or a Class 3 drug. So they're followed. And then revoke licenses of anybody who misuses it. We need a massive public information campaign, and that's what we're doing here. Now, number 5, I think, in my opinion, is the most important. Grant veterans universal insurance. Why do they have to use the VA? If the VA is not working for them, they should be able to go wherever they want and get whatever they want. There are veterans. They took care of this country. Why can't they have insurance to go where they want, when they want?
That's the key one, I think.
Thank you very much.